To our beloved faculty of the Graduate School, EDUC 200 Advanced Philosophy of Education with Curriculum Planning, Design and Evaluation, Dr. Lyndon A. Queenis, fellow learners and educators, I'm Princess REMA B. CERBO. I'm here today to present to you the topic about the democratic education and the classical education, their goal of education, the role of the teacher, their methods of instruction, and the curriculum. To start with, let me first present the democratic education. Democratic education is an educational ideal in which democracy is both a goal and a method of instruction. It brings democratic values to education and can include self-determination within a community of equals, as well as such values as justice, respect, and trust. The goal of democratic education. The purpose of education in a democratic society is to instill the values of cooperation, fairness, and justice into the hearts of our students. It would argue that these values are essential to maintaining and improving a functional democracy in any country. The goal of democratic education, in addition, is the free education, the broad-based education, the child-centered education, community-centered education, provision of adult education, good citizenship, decentralized education for national unity, and compulsory education. In addition, the real goals of education are to become lifelong learners, be passionate, be ready to take risks, be able to problem solve and to think critically, to be able to look at things differently, to be able to work independently and with others, and be creative, to care and to want to give back to their community. In the democracy and education, the choice and the ability to have autonomy in the direction of one's educational path and control, the ability to decide how to approach major educational needs, are the two main principles of the democratic education. In discussing the role of the teacher, in order to have a successful democracy, universal education is a necessity. So teachers play a profound role in a democracy. They must educate students to be knowledgeable, questioning, and engage participants in a democracy, or democracy will fail. Without knowledgeable voters, a democracy cannot work. Now, the role of the teacher in the democratic education. The most common role a teacher plays in the classroom is to teach knowledge to children. Teachers teach in many ways, including lectures, small group activities, and hands-on learning activities. In creating the classroom environment, teachers also play an important role in the classroom when it comes to the environment. A teacher who has a democratic teaching style acts politely with students, but at the same time maintains discipline in a positive manner. Teachers nurtures the students' thinking. Students are open for verbal interaction and are expected to create something new by applying their body of knowledge. Now, this results in an atmosphere of acceptance and high expectation, an environment of order and routine, flexible and conducive to creative, constructive, and responsible activity. In the democratic education as a role of the teacher places limits while encouraging independence and is polite but firm and nurturing. The teacher is open to verbal interaction. The teacher gives praise and encouragement, and the teacher guides rather than leads. In the methods of instruction in democratic education, in the democratic classroom, the teacher uses methods to encourage creative and critical thinking. The student in the democratic classroom is allowed to ask questions. A student may express an opinion as long as he can back with an idea with supportive materials. In the democratic classroom, the teacher uses methods to encourage creative and critical thinking. The student in the democratic classroom is allowed to ask questions. In a democratic education is always student-centered and is focused on discussion, discovery, project, self-study, drill, and computer-assisted. Now, discussing the curriculum in a democratic education as understood by Dewey is a curriculum that embodies from a pedagogical point of view the social interaction and collective enterprise necessary for active in a democratic society. In a curriculum in a democratic education, it always question and answer sessions with an open-ended session, equal opportunity to everyone without barrier. The monitor methods in leadership training, in activity-based teaching, and in simulation of situation. They respect others' opinion and encourage harmony. They convey message effectively with better communication and their celebration of events which results to effective planning. Now, let's go to the classical education with its differences with the democratic education. The classical education movement is a form of education that emphasizes history, literature, and language studies within a modern school framework. The term classical education has been used in Western culture for several centuries, with each era modifying the definition and adding its own selection of topics. Let's go to the goal of classical education. The goal of classical education, then, is the study of the classics in the original languages and the liberal arts, the best that has been thought and said, and the intellectual skills that equip a student to think critically. The role of the teacher in classical education. The teachers in a classical school go about the work of formation in three main ways. In the first place, they strive to instill good habits. A fine lecture is useless to the student who has not developed the habit of listening. Second, teachers model what they want their students to become. Now let's go to their method of instruction in the classical education. The classical approach teaches students how to learn and how to think. Regardless of their learning style, children learn in three phases or stages. These are the grammar, logic or dialectic, and rhetoric, and also known as the trivium. In the grammar stage, the K-12 or the K-6 students are naturally adept at memorizing new songs, chants, and rhyme. Now, let's go to the last topic of the classical education, which is the curriculum in classical education. The classical homeschool curriculum is for a classical education that will provide a core knowledge of the subject of language arts, mathematics, science, and history. They put a particular emphasis on Latin learning. logic and rhetoric. They employ the tribune to explain the stages of child development. Now that brings me to the end of the presentation. To end, I'd like to highlight that education takes us to become lifelong learners, to be able to give and to care, to give back to our community. I'd like to finish this with this powerful, interesting, wonderful, inspiring quote from Albert Einstein. He talks about education. He said, "Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. I had no special talent. I am only passionately curious. A person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new." And finally, before we leave our presentation today, please take 2 minutes to leave a comment about your experiences with the presentation. You can share your thoughts or ask questions in the comment section at the bottom of this lesson. Thank you for your time and attention today. Once again, this ends our topic. Thank you very much for listening and mabuhay!